This past Wednesday, yet another young person of our community was buried, having fallen prey to that ultimate despair that sees no way forward except to take one's own life. Many of you knew this young man, so gifted and so loving, who never failed growing up to kiss his mother goodnight. He was raised in a family that loved him. He was able to pursue his love of sailing. But something happened, something intervened, we know not what, that caused him, even for a split second, to lose all hope in living. What that something was, I certainly do not know, but since I came to this church about 7 years ago, the loss of life in the Norfolk community through suicide has, I dare say, touched just about everyone in this church in one way or another. Our daughter has had friends who have lost family members in this way, and she has known one or two who have lost their lives. And on several occasions, when I looked a bit down, she asked me whether I had ever entertained the idea. Such conversations like that I had with my daughter have caused me to search my own life and to think carefully about why I have not entertained that thought, and perhaps others have. Oh, I am not Mr. Optimist, as my wife and daughter can tell you. They have a name for me, some of you know, I've shared this before, Daddy Downer. After all, I'm a Welshman. You know, the Welsh lived in dark countries, and that darkness still lives within our hearts. I am Mr. Glass half empty rather than half full. So what was it when I look back at my own life, when those moments came to me where there seemed to be no way forward and no way out? What made the difference? Because my ultimate point of reference is my own life. And not only that, what made such moments turning points leading to life in greater abundance, to transformation, to new roads forward rather than despair and death and dead ends? Because that's what they were. I can trace those moments where I feel like I'm in the valley of despond and know now that through some bit of grace not within me, that what will follow will be something new, a new possibility. A number of years ago, I began a 2-year program in spiritual direction, and it was held at Talbot Hall, where our diocesan offices and retreat center used to be. And the night before I started, I dreamt that I was going to Talbot Hall to die, to be executed. And as I was driving down Talbot Hall Road, I saw the headlines, "Win Lewis to die at Talbot Hall." But that wasn't the end of the dream, because the end of the dream was, but I wonder what life is going to be like after I die. And I realized I wasn't talking about a physical death. I was talking about those dead ends of life that become transformational for us. So what was that ingredient for me? And the word that keeps coming back is hope. Hope. But not hope as something I can conjure up, because I'm not capable at such dark moments of conjuring up hope when there seems like no way forward. Rather, it is because I've been part all of my life of a Christian community whose leitmotif is hope in a God who promises that we will never be left alone. We will never be left to face our perils alone, as the Thomas Merton prayer tells us. I've been a part of a Christian community whose core story is a story of hope and not shame, of community and not loneliness. Somehow in this Christian community of hope, even when I feel alone, I know I'm not alone. There is a presence there. A presence proclaimed and embodied in the people of the community who have loved me and cared for me through the years. It is a community of hope that has borne my trials and weathered my frailties. It is a community that proclaims, to use the words of Corrie ten Boom, written from a concentration camp, watching her beloved friends die, there is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. There is no pit so deep that God's love is not deeper still. This is not a pie in the sky, God is going to make everything all right hope, but a hope that is lived and breathed in community, a community that emerged from outside of myself. This is a hope that has come to me as gift, just when I knew that I could not conjure it up, and it was a hope that would turn me around and make all things new again, precisely when it seemed like there was no answer or road ahead. Communities of hope are not communities of shame, and they're not communities of judgment. Christian communities of hope call us beyond the limiting values of culture and peer group. Communities of hope turn lives around. After almost 7 years as your rector, I know that this church is a community of hope. I know stories of how you have welcomed those who have not been welcomed elsewhere, or you've been one of those people not welcomed elsewhere who now welcome others here, who you have loved and in so doing made of their hopelessness a new pathway to life rather than a dead-end story. In this way, a community of hope is a community rooted in the power of the cross, which Paul says is foolishness to much of the world, but the power of God and the wisdom of God. That power of compassion, of self-sacrificial love that carries with it the promise of new life in the end, in all of our endings, in all of our journeys. In today's gospel reading, the Sermon on the Mount, which you'll recall began with the Beatitudes, the blessed are the poor in spirit, blessed are you when you're persecuted, ends in, it does not end, but it reaches its apex in the words, be perfect as your heavenly Father is perfect. Now, beware of that word. It's a terrible translation of a word that is absolutely wonderful, because when you hear be perfect, it brings every perfectionist bone in one's body to birth. But what is meant by that is Be whom God has created you to be. Be whom God has created you to be in your uniqueness. Be a person of hope and of joy and of faith. And none of that can come to birth without a community in which you feel loved. And you do not feel loved unless you are loved in the dark times, in the times when you are most vulnerable or unlike yourself. You can be loved into your own truth. That's the apex. That's why you're blessed when you're persecuted, because even persecution can carry you like a refiner's fire to the purity of your own soul. And so today I think the charge is for all of us, not just individually, but at this community, that we are more true to ourselves. We are people of hope. And our children need that. You can't be a person of hope making this journey individually. I hear a lot of people say, I don't need church, I just between me and God. Great. Enjoy it, but that's not for me. I need you guys. And we need each other. And we need the hope we give. And that's the brilliance and beauty of the gift of Christ in St. Luke's. So I thank you for being you. This community needs you. The children and the young people of this community need you to be people of hope, to be people of promise, and to intervene in those dark moments in people's lives with the promise that they can live again and live more fully than they could ever have conceived before. Amen.